Lord is concerned about that. We actually talked about that a little bit last night on our show, and that's where, all these gifts that the Lord gives to ministries, He gives people, He anoints them. But it's almost like we've got it reversed. We care about the giftings, but we don't care about the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit takes years, months to cultivate. And look, the Lord's still working on me, still working on you. He works on all of us. But there's a part of this walk that, look, if we can all help it. And I know there's sometimes, at least like you said, we do fail. But it's your attitude when you fail. If you take responsibility, and we've always heard the saying, it's really never the crime itself; it's always the reaction to it. It's always the cover up. Well, I think in this faith walk, it's the attitude, whether it's humility or arrogance. If it's humility and say, Lord, I messed up, I need to go back and make this right, then I think most people understand that and they respect you for it. It's this arrogance that has infiltrated the American landscape, and it is because a lot of that television, Mark. A lot of it is just the fact that these preachers and these ministers, and I'm not saying it's everybody, because that would be unfair, because there are some good men of God still in this nation. But I'm telling you, a lot of these ministers, it's all about this show. This court jester that you showed the Pope doing. Let me tell you something. That spirit.
It's a clown show.
That spirit has infiltrated the whole world, not just America. Yep. That spirit has infiltrated this whole terra firma when it comes to the spirit of entertainment and the spirit of jesting and the spirit of clowns and clowning around. And look, I'm not a fuddy-duddy. And I don't think that, look, and whether you're I hope to God, if you've been listening to this show, I hope you've removed yourself from the 501c3. And I want to just say this, because I get asked this a lot. Just because a church meets in a building doesn't make it a 501c3. There's a lot of churches that have left the 501c3 and they've gathered together. And if you can find one of those fellowships, I encourage you to find one of those fellowships. It's not about the building, but it's about the structure over it. But a lot of these big name ministries, Mark, they have just reached a point they'd rather entertain the masses than ever preach the gospel. And again, I've been thinking about this a little bit. And look, we're wasting time. Look, this clock is ticking. Look, even if President Trump gets reelected, I believe he will. You know something? We got 4 years, because we're already 3 into his presidency. This is his final year of his first term. So we got 5 years at the most. And the church had better get busy, Mark. We better get busy doing exactly what God ordained President Trump to his election to do, and that's to free the runway for the church to take off and take this gospel, the true gospel, into all parts of the world, and then the end's going to come. That's what the Bible tells us. Now, I don't know when that end's coming. It could be 50 years from now, 60 years from now, 50 years, whatever it is. But there's a time frame coming when this curtain's going to come down on this age. And we need to get busy doing the Lord's work, because today is the day of salvation. And the harvest field is wide open, but the laborers are few. That's how I look at this. And I think it's all going back to what you're just saying, that there's a cleaning out of this integrity.
It's a cleaning out of the character and integrity right now. Like right here, a Chicago pastor was charged with bilking federal program to feed needy kids, spending $142,000 for himself on a Bentley. Now, I know most people are going to say, well, I didn't do that, for crying out loud. That is bad character. Let me just give you an example of bad character, how the Holy Spirit's going to test you. You could be walking down the street on the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden there's a little piece of paper, gum wrapper laying right there. And the Holy Spirit says, pick that up, throw it in the trash. But you walk by it. You didn't do it. That's character. That's the Holy Spirit testing you. That's character testing right there. You just flunked the test because the Spirit told you something, you didn't act on it. Now, did you steal $142,000 and buy a Bentley? No. But the point is that God can't use someone. He has a very hard time using someone who's got horrible character and integrity. Again, character is the foundation upon which everything is built right now. And if God's going to give you a high rise, but you have the foundation of the thickness of a residential, what do you think is going to happen to that ministry? It's going to collapse. But most people don't want to go through that process, Chris. That's the problem.
Right. And it is a tough process, Mark. It's not easy. Look, I'm 55 years old, but I just came in. Look, it's taken the Lord 40 years nearly to get a lot of stuff out of me before I could do what I'm doing tonight. And look, I thank God. I've looked back on those years, and those years were the toughest. I mean, there's been a lot of tears shed. There's been a lot of disappointment, a lot of running into walls and turning around, going in another direction, running into another wall, and starting over. But I'm going to tell you something, peace tonight. And I've told people this a million times, and I think that I can say this about a lot of people. What's going on right now over this show and over all what the whole social network that God's doing and forming this little alternative network, this alternative media of people. There's a unique flavor to a lot of people that he's using, but there's one common denominator. A lot of them have been through hell itself to get to where they've been, and the Lord has stripped them of everything, and it's like we know good well it's not us. It's got to be God, because he stripped us down to almost nothing, to where we can't depend on nobody but God. And that's what it's been the last 2 years. There's been nobody to depend on. And look, the Lord, that's how he does character building, Mark. But those ministries like that ultimately are going to be the most trustworthy, because those ministries, and we're not pointing to ourselves, folks. There's a lot of people out here that this applies to. But those ministries that have been stripped down to nothing, their dependency is above, and you can't buy them off. You can't give a donation to them and thinking you're going to get something for that donation. You're not going to give them money and expect them to change their message, or you're not going to be able to bombard them with 10 emails a day and saying, this is what I think you should say, and this is what I think you should say. You shouldn't say that, or you should say that, because their focus ain't on this. It's above. It's what God is wanting them to say. And again, we're not perfect here, and neither is anybody else. And sometimes the way we say it, we may have to go back and apologize and say we maybe shouldn't have said it that way. But our heart is always going to be in the right place, because we're trying to say what the Lord's wanting us to say. Am I far off on that?
No, you're absolutely right. I'm going to get off the soapbox here and change it, go into the exposure stuff here in just a second here. But see, what they've created, what these CEOs in the pulpits have created, is they've created a spirit of apathy, because they just want to have good words. They want to be liked. They want to be loved by everybody, and they don't want to be the one to correct somebody, to issue correction. And the problem is, when God truly loves you, he's going to correct you, period. Whether it's through spiritual smackdown, whether it's through a pastor, whether it's through a brother or sister, whatever it is. So, but they've created this atmosphere where nobody wants to work in a spirit of excellence, like we talked about. But it's created apathy. They just go in, they do the bare minimums on their job, they collect a paycheck, and then they leave and go home. And then it makes it hard for the good ones who want to work at that job. You know what I mean? Just little things like this on a daily basis. So anyhow, that's that. So
that's good.
On to the exposures.
Go ahead,
God's doing massive exposures right now. Right now, there's it says a vile pedophile priest dies of a heart attack just weeks before he was due to be sentenced for abusing 6 young boys. This is some of the stuff's incredible. What's the other one here? Right here. There was another one. There was a priest in Phoenix that's been indicted, and the church knew he was a predator. The victim advocate speaks out on former Phoenix priest's indictment. You had a guy out here, a former Catholic priest in Valley, was charged with child sex crimes dating back to the 2000s. Father John Spalding, 74, is accused of sexually abusing 2 young boys in the early 2000s. Thursday, he was indicted in Maricopa County Attorney's Office. God is continually exposing this stuff, guys. It's coming out. You know what I mean? A little bit at a time. Now, here's a big one. Here's a big one. This shows you, again, the court jester we just showed you, the head pope, the head of this system, right here in Business Week was the headlines. It says the U.S. Catholic Church in the past 15 years has shielded more than $2 billion, with a B,
wow,
in assets from abuse victims by aggressively moving and reclassifying assets before declaring bankruptcy. They're literally hiding these assets and money so that the victims don't have access to it. How wicked.
That's as wicked as it gets, Mark.
That's as wicked as it gets. Right there, brother. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry. The church's strategy is to limit payouts to abuse victims. Give me a break, man. You want to talk about the all-time character and integrity issues. Again, it goes back to the leadership. It's whatever is on the head rolls downhill.
But where else does that go back to? It goes back to the big S. It goes back to the money. It goes back to the money. And again, folks, please understand this tonight. Money in itself is not evil. Every one of you out here have a mortgage payment. You have a light bill. Every one of you go to work and you get paid with money. Money's not evil. but the love of money is. And when things and decisions are being made, whether they're spiritual, whether they're political, whether they're just family. Look, I've seen families destroyed by this. But if the love of money supersedes character, you got something demonic going on. And look at our political system, how corrupt it's gotten. Look at our spiritual system, these evangelical elites. Look at all of this that's going on. And usually at the root of it is the greed and the love of money. We've said that a million times on this show, and it's sad to know.